Okay, well, yeah. Should have been here yesterday. I'll call the meeting to order, record of attendance. Linda will get that. Declarations of, nobody's absent with regrets today. We got a full slate.
Welcome back, Sandy. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? And approval, hold it. We have, okay. I was gonna say, is this November? Because the other, right? Because November will be your last committee of the whole.
Committee of the whole.
Last committee of the whole.
Not necessarily.
We're gonna have one in December? We're gonna have a couple.
Negotiating extension.
Christmas Day, we're going to have one, committee of the whole.
Approval of agenda, additions or deletions. I think under EF, maybe I'll just mention something to Charles. Okay, any additions or deletions, folks?
I'll move the approval of the agenda. Second. I did have something.
Okay, and what would it be?
I just wanted to, some months ago, we were...
What's
Some
the
months
title?
ago, we had the financials for Mariner Center sent out to us.
Okay,
And they've been sitting around for quite a while, so I wanted to make a comment about that.
okay, so I'm gonna put you under 9A, Mariners. Thank you. Okay, so motion's been made, okay? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, staff report, CAO report. Oh, where is it?
No, we don't have it.
Okay. I will vote for the fact that, didn't mean you weren't doing anything.
Yeah, okay. No, I just want to let you know there is not a written report today, but I will circulate a report. Apologize for that. Getting used to the new schedule.
Yep, good stuff. Okay. Fire department, chief?
The report's attached, if there's any questions about all volume and everything. Also, Your Honor, if I could, or Your Honor, Your Worship,
Whatever.
if I could have a minute just to give an update on dispatch.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just wanted to let council know I was asked just to speak briefly about the number of departments that have left and who they are.
Excuse me, John. You pulled the mic
yeah, we can't quite
Hello,
hear.
hello. That better?
a little bit better.
Okay, I'll speak louder too.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. There's been 7 fire departments that have left so far, and didn't bring my glasses. Barrington, Port Latour, Island, Barrington Passage, and Shelburne all went to Valley Dispatch. Matagan, Salmon River, and Hectanuga went to Digby Dispatch. And Middle and Upper Ohio Fire Department went to Scotia Business Center. Those are the ones I know of. There might be other ones in the work that I may not know of, so you might hear stuff out there, but officially those are the ones that I have documentation on. Okay. That's 7.
7.
How many were we serving before?
24? 24? Yeah. Yeah,
How many in Yarmouth
expected.
County, John?
6. Well, including us would be 7, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, chief.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead.
So of the seven that have left, have any of them set up their own private dispatches?
Oh, they could set up a dispatch if they want to.
Are they going to alternative dispatch services?
Yes, they are, yeah.
And are those alternative dispatch services not located in Yarmouth County?
No, Digby is located in Digby.
But Digby's not in Yarmouth County?
No.
No.
All right, so the next question I have is we received, your reports are in our, when did we start negotiation? What month? CAO?
You got that?
With the union,
Yes,
last day of April.
last day of April. So when I looked at the reports for the dispatch numbers, it seems like the average dispatch numbers spiked and went up by a little over 100 numbers a month, starting around April and continuing to this day compared to what was previously the case. Has there been some kind of a new industry located here, is having a lot of fires or something, or? is it maybe deliberate to try to build their numbers up in terms of the number of calls?
I don't think they would do something like
Could
that.
you look into it? Because if you look at what I'm talking about, when I look at numbers, I see anomalies.
I can do a
To me, there's
comparative.
an anomaly there.
I can
And
do a
usually that kind of anomaly can only be attributed to some new activity or to deliberate manipulation of the numbers. I'd like to have you look at that and get back to me.
I'll take a look at it. Is there any specific area that you're noticing it in, or
I just looked at the big number there, the number of calls, or number of actions, not
the number of
calls,
actions? Okay, so the total number, okay.
Because they do have control over a number of the things they put there. They're not representative of actual calls in. They're little things they do, like checking their pagers and that
Yes,
kind of
yeah.
thing to build. And it just seemed as if all of a sudden, there's a lot more of those numbers, and they're consistently higher going forward up to the current time from April to what they were before April.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Good, thank you, chief. Operational services. Where's the, where's Charles under? That messes me up every time. Okay, planning. We did have something from planning, I thought. Yep, okay, any questions? All right, asset management infrastructure.
Planning, is that business about the crosswalk and parking on Parade Street part of planning, or is that under some other?
So this is under the pedestrian
All right, good.
crossing right
Thank
here.
you.
So that's
Good.
now, if you got questions.
So, just a dumb question, because I was a Sea Cadet, an Air Cadet, and my mom and dad didn't drive me in bubble wrap to the local armory. Where did this complaint come from? To generate all that activity?
so-
On a shoulder that's beat up, pavement that's all because of people illegally parking to go to the Yark for the last 30 years? I'm not done yet. I woke up wrong side of the bed this morning.
I gotta put you back to bed.
But I do read my stuff.
Of course you do. So,
So I just wonder how many people complained about this, and if they're from the county.
okay. Charles, do you wanna, you good? Is it Charles? Yes. Oh, sorry, didn't see that,
If I can
Jeff.
respond to that, I can.
Yes, please.
So at a prior, at last council meeting, this was referred to the traffic authority. It came from the council table to look at possible crosswalk at that location. So that's why the work was done, was to respond to council direction.
Well, I thought some of it's a pretty good idea, because frankly, if they do it, make a safe zone, that'll eliminate all those screwed up parking spaces along the Arc. I would think they were full the other night. You won't be able to park in that, will you? Shouldn't be parking there anyway, it's on the highway. You can't park along there without parking on the, on the pavement.
Yeah.
And I just had those questions. I wanted to make sure we weren't responding to some kind of,
Could you repeat that question, Counselor?
So,
which question?
so I think it was where
That comment?
did because it's obvious that you've done a lot of work on that. So where was it generated from? Oh yeah, Jeff answered that question. Yeah, will people be allowed to park?
I believe that these requests come from a citizen or somebody asking for us to look into this.
Yes,
Yeah, so is that what happened? I'm not asking for the name of the citizen, but I'm asking, how much of a problem was this?
We,
Oh, it came from the cadet corps itself? All right, I better shut up.
No, that's not the point. The question is, in the bigger picture, is one person concerned with an issue and it's coming to the council table? regardless of whether it's this issue or another. And it happens, so, yeah, and we just deal with it.
But you see, if it happens on a night when the Ark is performing and all the cars are parked along there, it's not good for dropping kids off and that sort of thing. And some of the kids are coming in from the county, I understand that. But there used to be, and is still now, an in and out, you know, a circular driveway in front of the drill hall, which I always thought seemed to serve for that purpose.
Yeah. So go ahead, Charles, if you want to explain. I don't know what the question is, but.
So, Councillor, just to speak to your comments there, we get quite a few calls regarding crosswalks, just from different people in town here. So I thought that I would try to produce something that would be a more systematic approach that would analyze it from a few different angles, and then this could be this sort of approach could be repeated for other requests, and just have more of a systematic approach.
Well, on that section, you can't put a crosswalk in because there's no corner or abutting street to put it from. I mean, that should be the first answer. You can't put I think I'm right. You can't put a crosswalk where there isn't well, you can.
Yeah, I would say, just to summarize really quickly, because there's no crosswalk on the north side of Parade Street in that location, you're somewhat limited. The crosswalk would actually have to be lined up with the vehicle access into the armory. And if you look at it, the vehicle and pedestrian conflicts for pathing is increased. So
Yeah.
I don't think that would help or improve the safety of the individuals. I think that alerting the driver to the specifics, that there's going to be multiple pedestrian crossings through signage, and then speaking with the armory staff to try and create a process where the drop-offs are actually inside the armory property.
So I want to be serious for a moment, because I'm unserious to try to get people's attention about these things. The condition of the pavement in that section where you want to work is very poor. In my view, if you were to do this, you would have to take on the project to probably widen it and certainly fix it, because it is in very poor condition. Now, I think we're planning maybe, how far are we going to go up Parade Street when we do the...
We were just planning to go to Pleasant.
So we're not going to be doing work out in that section if...
They're not for a full rebuild. There could be mill and recap possibilities for 2019, but not for a full rebuild in that area.
Anyway, I think just designating it is not enough. We've got to do something, and it wouldn't be, we've got to fix the pavement up along there at the very least, and maybe widen it a bit to make that work. And maybe help people that need to park and get close to the Ark to go to the Ark while it's still there, before it moves to Arcadia.
Charles?
So, Councillor, what's your concern?
I don't see how you can do it without really. I think to do it, you'd have to do a proper reconstruct of the street. How much is that going to cost? To do it properly, you'd have to do a reconstruct of the street. How much is that going to cost? And frankly, 60-something years ago, I was a member of the Cadet Corps, and we got to and from there without much trouble. So I said, what the heck is this all about, If it's a problem, it's a problem, but I don't know how much money we should spend on it, to be honest.
So,
Jeff's gonna.
yeah, so I think the engineer's recommendation is to encourage through maybe education or communication with the Cadet Corps to have parents pick up and drop off the cadets inside the gate, so on the property in the parking lot. And I know there's an area there that isn't in the aerial shot that you have, but they have actually created gravel parking on the west side of their property. So I think that's probably their intention. On really busy nights, right, when they might have a bigger event going on there, you will have people parking across the road and people traveling back and forth, and they'll have to be be careful, and maybe you can talk to the Cadet Corps about those specific incidents when they have larger gatherings where people would have to park across the road. Is there any measures that they can take in terms of temporary warnings for vehicular traffic in those situations? And maybe we can work with them to support that. But at the current recommendation is not to change the infrastructure, not to put in a crossing, just simply to manage the situation as best we can and work with the armors.
So, Councillor McLeod.
I was going to sort of comment along the line that Jeff has just commented, because in the summary, or the paragraph above that, Charles is going to be working with the Armory administration. And the other, to make the streets safer for pedestrians, etc. I was interested in the traffic speed, and I wondered how we measure traffic speed. I noticed the maximum observed speed was 128.2 kilometers per hour. That wasn't me, by the way, but I was, and the slowest speed was 10.2. So I was just curious, Charles, how we measure traffic speed.
So the device will read a bump, and then it'll read 2 sets of bumps, and so it uses the time differential between those to calculate speed with an average wheelbase.
128 on Parade Street is pretty good. Not driving an electric car, I don't think. Thank you very much. It was a good report, interesting report, Charles.
So we good on that one?
I am.
All right. Anything else for Charles? Charles, was there anything else you needed to share? Are you good, or?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to cover the fire hall second floor rebuild. So we had a project team kickoff meeting. We have a short list of scope items that we need for occupancy on the second floor, and as soon as we can build a construction scope of work, we can move towards getting quotes, or sorry, I should say estimates.
Okay. The wharf stabilization. Deviation from the engineered drawings. Okay. We don't get any money for that, do we? That's ours. Anything else for Charles? We good?
I just have another.
Sorry, Jim, I didn't see that.
That's
Go
all
ahead.
right. I noticed the town crew over the past 2 or 3 days working on Alma Street, Collins Street, and this morning on the corner of Parade and First, I think. Water valve problems. And if we're going to be planning on building the YARC, New Arts and Culture Center, excuse me for saying that, in the future, we should be considering that looking after that part of our infrastructure. It's because it's happening quite regularly. Alma Street is in like 2 or 3 water breakages. Anyway, thank you.
That's a good point, Councillor. We're still trying to diagnose exactly what the cause of the frequency of those failures was. So once we can identify that, it might help us moving forward, just strategize on what we want to do and whether it requires a full rebuild or whether it requires isolated repairs or whatever it is.
And we did Albert Street, and I just got a couple phone calls this week about Prince Lane, which is where the folks on Prince and William have their parking and behind, and they're scraping bottom just because that part wasn't leveled off or finished. I don't know where that goes, but maybe take a peek at that. Good? All right, thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Finance.
Yeah, just gave you the high-level review of both the town and water utility statements there. This time of year, not a lot of variances from the plan. A few maintenance things happen that were planned to be done in October, November, or vice versa the other way. So on the expense side, not a lot going on. On the revenue side, just on the town, the one variance there is you'll see third line down, and that's got to do with it says sale of service, but it's actually some capital funding we received for the final claims on the Cliff Street project that we got back in April. So that money typically at the end of the year will get moved over to the capital fund anyway to help pay for those things. So not many variances to this point, and nothing to report.
Good. Questions for finance? Recreation? And Frank's not here, but there's probably at the
Frank's
conference.
getting ready for because I think Misty's on the planning committee
Yeah.
workshop for Nova Scotia Recreation. That meeting will be held over the next 2 days, Thursday, Friday at Oak Island. I'll be attending on Thursday and Friday, so I think Frank's getting ready for that. Misty is on the planning committee.
Good stuff. Okay. Economic development, Natalie.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. If there are any questions on my report, I'd be happy to answer.
No, I'm good. We good?
Great,
That was easy.
thank you.
Okay. Lake George update? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a concern from a citizen, had a couple of comments or questions to myself, and I have a question afterwards, is maybe to the CAO. Can we have an update on the Lake George expenses? Are there going to, you want to write them down, Jeff? Is there an update on the Lake George expenses? Are there going to be other expenses or costs associated with the testing for the Lake George site? The person was also concerned with the information that they received from the town about the breakdown. Can we have maybe a little more detailed breakdown? And the only other question or comment is, if a citizen or a person is dissatisfied with the answer that you get, is there another way to another higher authority, if it's either ombudsman, freedom of information, or is it municipal affairs? I'm just wondering.
Go ahead.
So council has not asked for an update on Lake George expenses, so one has not been provided recently. I did have, Mr. Horton did request and was provided with a summary, I think it was 3-year summary of the expenses we had incurred there. I was not aware that he was unsatisfied with the information he was provided, but we can look at that. I mean, there's nothing to hide.
Yep.
So, you know, if council wants that same information, we can circulate it. There's no issue. As far as other testing goes, I don't believe there's any other testing requirements.
So we completed the testing, then I think Englobe said they were going to do, right?
Yeah, we're fully satisfied. Department of Environment fully completed our work with Englobe. There is no further work required from the town with regard to environmental testing.
Good. So you'll go back and check to see if there's any other update or any other numbers that go onto the total that you gave the citizen or gave the public.
I will ask the Director of Finance. I didn't put those numbers together myself.
Okay.
They come out of our financial system, so I'll ask Jerry to review the numbers, and I'll provide those to council. And if there's further detail that's requested, then we'll provide it.
Okay.
And sorry, your last question was, if a person's not satisfied, is there a higher authority? Well, I think
I don't know if it's authority, but is there another avenue that citizen could take?
You know what? Yeah. I always encourage people, if we've done our best to provide the information that is requested, if we provide the facts such as they are, and somebody's not satisfied that they've either received the information or they've been wronged in some way, there is a provincial ombudsman's office, and I talk to them on a regular basis, right? A regular being once or twice a year, because I don't think there's anything wrong with oversight and getting a second opinion, or having somebody else with the role of authority having another look. We, as I say, we deal with that once or twice a year, and we've never had a single incidence where the ombudsman has found anything out of sorts. So I encourage that.
Good. So you don't need a motion then for that other part, you'll do that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
And timeline for that, maybe
Well,
next?
the report that I'll send to you will be no different than what was sent to the citizens, so that is, later this day.
Okay.
And if
What
you-
about a breakdown?
Well, let me send you what we have.
Okay.
And if you have a follow-up question, ask the question.
That's a question afterwards, okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, come on out.
Maybe I can clarify some of this stuff that I received from the town on the expenses here. On site trucking, and I imagine F-16 is the year 16. I'm not sure what F-15, F-16, 17, and 18 means. But site trucking, $9,948, and then you come down to transportation miscellaneous project, $9,948. So then we go down to site consultant fees, $21,334. We come to compost facility miscellaneous, transportation miscellaneous, $21,334, $30,000 that is double dipped here to me that I can't make any sense of. At an earlier meeting, Your Worship, back when, and I think some of the councillors will remember this, maybe Councillor Dennis, maybe Councillor Mooney, because they were two that were on there. It was stated by Mr. Guscio, $125,000 that we paid out for site consultant fees then, and it's only saying that we only paid $96,348. I don't know. When I do the math, it doesn't add up to me.
Okay, so this is what happens then. Jeff sends the report, take a look.
Yeah.
And then all these questions, I would encourage you just send them out. Just send out your questions. This is what I see for discrepancies, and they'll get answered.
Your Worship, in all fairness, there was no discrepancies there. I sat in his office and we had a talk for an hour. I told him exactly what I wanted. I can put them in writing if I need to. I asked for him. I had to wait, and I didn't mind waiting because I know he's a busy man. But come and get this. It just doesn't add up.
Okay.
You can explain that to me. I'd be more than interested in hearing it. And the other question I have, because of this, is the Town of Yarmouth Organizational Review. When this happened, and I came to council, he said it was a mistake. To date, this mistake, from what I've got, cost us $259,965. No thorough investigation done. It was just, I was told as a citizen, this was a mistake. We dealt with it. Now, getting back to the other councillors that were on the previous council, there was supposed to be, or I was under the impression, and I think a couple of these councillors will admit it, that this review was supposed to be done on the way the town's being managed, not on the whole organizational thing of it. I'd like to know what you've done and put in place so this mistake will never happen again. And talking to different people in the town and talking to most of you councillors, you guys don't know anything about it. Not a thing. It's never been discussed with council or anything. So what do? We wait till we have another $259,000 mistake, which I know the price is way over that. Back in the day, different councils said 3, don't have to give any names, it was a $325,000 then in climbing. So, another question I'd like to know, and which I asked, what is this going to cost the taxpayer of the town of Yarmouth for the insurance that's taken over this lawsuit that's going on, which it's been put out to the public, there is no lawsuit going on, that Lake George is a closed identity and everything's done deal out there. Well, that's not true. I'd like to have some answers.
Thank you.
And the way I look at it, I don't know if I'm going to get them or how long it's going to take or how honest they're going to be, because nobody's been honest and up forth with this. And I've asked almost every councillor on the council what the bill was. And 8 months I haven't heard back from you, Mr. McLeod. So what's it going to be? I mean, am I the Black Plague, or I can't ask a question? I'm not entitled as a taxpayer of Yarmouth to get these answers? And the people want to know. Everybody thinks it's over with because you've made that statement that there was nothing going on, everything was done. Well, it's not done. It's not done by a long shot. And I want to know these answers. I want to know what you put in place that this is never going to happen again, especially on something as important as our watershed. Sandy, good seeing you. So, how many more years is it going to take to get an honest answer or get the information that I've been asking?
Yeah. So you got the numbers, you asked for numbers. If there's follow-up questions, then send those and you get them. Go ahead, Councillor Wood.
I can tell you one thing that's going to be done while I'm here. There's going to be someone to stand up to people like you and the Department of Environment to ensure we're never screwed over like this again. Thank you.
Really? Yeah. I find that funny and interesting that you say that never be screwed over by me, by the Department of Environment. Watch what you're saying there, Cliff, because that's not necessarily true. I pay my taxes in this town like everybody else, including you. And when you make a decision to move that much material, you never had a plan of action or anything, and the people that knew that were even moving it over there, that it was raw garbage and putting it on there, boy, that's quite a statement coming from you.
Wasn't wrong.
Garnet, if I can, Your Worship, I'll try to be civil.
Be careful.
First of all, I'm going to withdraw the remark that people were screwed over. It's inappropriate. But I am very disappointed that the Department of Environment doesn't have a regime in place that would allow its inspectors to use common sense and some expertise of their own before they embark on writing tickets and issuing orders that were unnecessary. In my review of what happened on this file, it was unnecessary to do what was done. Now, sometimes people who, like yourself, become concerned about what happened, advocate very strongly about their concerns. Had someone come forth from the Department of Environment and provided yourself and others who I assume that you were concerned about from the area, you live out there, and provided them with the information that could have been provided, and that information was that there was nothing in the material that was placed on that property that could cause, did cause, or otherwise harmed anybody out there. That's what I've found from my analysis of it. That's what's borne out by the very expensive reports that we were forced to do by the Department of Environment. But that case has been closed. That case has been closed.
That's not dependent in the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia. There's nothing going on there.
You have a son that is a lawyer. He can inform you as to what would take place in terms of a policy of insurance and the obligations of an insurer to pay an indemnification. I'm not going to comment about what the town's particular case is. All I can tell you is there is a Supreme Court of Canada, or the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia case. It was adjourned at the request of the plaintiffs, that's the people that are suing us, to a date, I believe, in February for discoveries. My guess is this case will not see the light of day anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't, but if it ever does, then the truth will come out.
And I will say this, on the finances, my job as chairman of the water utility is to ensure that the water utility is managed properly and that any expenses that occurred to this are not improperly charged to the water utility as to the town. I met with Gloria earlier this week on that point, and I'm assured that the amounts, that the costs that were associated with this, I think, unfounded action that was taken, we had to deal with it.
How can you say?
I'm assured by the town's accountants that they've looked into that issue and that the amounts charged for the cleanup have been charged to the proper entity, that is, either to the town or the water utility. The water utility has not been burdened by any significant amount of those expenses. That's what I can answer to.
May I ask you a question then? You're the chairman of the water committee?
I am, yes.
What's the total bill? You should know it right now. What's the total bill right to date?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No. I know that,
Were you?
no, what I know is, because we've had our audit recently, and I met with Gloria Friday. I was in town Friday afternoon, and I asked her the question. Gloria Banks at Grant Thornton. And I was assured that the amounts that, there was a modest amount, a small amount charged to the water utility for the expenses out there, and not any major amount. So that answered my concerns in that regard.
But you know, when you come out and you say nothing was charged wrong or anything, what did the taxpayers of the town of Yarmouth do wrong to have to have this money go out? What did the people out there, and how did it happen, Clint?
So let me try, your worship, I'll continue to be civil. What did the taxpayers do? The town of Yarmouth operates a compost facility. When we originally received our operating permit for that, or the operating permit used to be based on guidelines set by the federal government in terms of how much foreign material can be contained in compost, Class A or B. About 4 or 5 years ago, when we had to have a new order, the federal government changed the guideline from a volumetric guideline to a size particle guideline. Volumetric meant you would be allowed a certain amount by weight of contaminants such as plastic forks and knives and paper bags, all right? The type of things that come out of Tim Hortons, I don't want out of fast food restaurants, and our own mistakes that we make when we throw out, say, we get a thing of lettuce and it gets rotten and the piece of plastic goes with it. So anyway, when we got our new operating certificate, all of a sudden we're constrained to a 3 millimeters size particle. And there were 2 dry summers here in the town. Our screener that we'd used for a number of years, and we could use when it was dry, but we had 2 wet summers. The screener had worn out, seen the end of its life, and we were forced to bring in a rental screener. The rental screener would come in at their convenience, and it happened, it was wet. Very difficult to screen, and a lot of compost built up out there on the site, and it became a problem for us. The problem was that our order said we can't move our compost without a permit from the Department of Environment. So an opportunity presented itself to staff that, look, we could transport this stuff over to the reclaimed and environmentally approved Environment Department property that we have at Lake George that we were forced to buy when the company that was out there went bankrupt. So, in the fall or summer of 2015, the town made a decision to go and put that material out there. There was a press conference, checked the newspapers. TREPA was there, John Solos, the mayor, media, newspaper, all the rest. And everybody was clapping their hands saying, this is a great thing. Well, stuff dried out. And by January, it was an unsightly looking mess on our property. Some of that stuff was blown onto other people's property. I can see that.
Still
And
is.
the rest unfolds. And what did the Department of Environment do? It issued an order that we had to clean that up by the end of May. Or April? What's the wettest time in the year in Yarmouth? April and May? How do you strain compost out of plastic in April and May? You'd like to be doing it in August or September, all right?
That's all supposed to be, that was all
So
supposed
let me just,
Okay.
please, 'cause-
Go ahead.
so anyway, long story short, down the road we go. The citizens legitimately, including yourself, become concerned. They start to worry first that the compost is going to pollute. When they get into it, all of a sudden the knives and forks are going to degenerate and the plastics are going to go in there. And then it started, then we do some studies to rectify that, and we find out there's some residual left. And no one seems to understand that any issues they have with their own water tests are issues resulting from the background chemicals that are in their water. Think of this now. You're in the business. Those same guidelines that I'm talking about, the 3 mil and that, the federal government has guidelines. For instance, for the wells in that area, they say that you should test for bacteria every 6 months. They say you should test for metals every 3 years. Do you think any of them are doing it? I doubt it. They say you should pump your septics every 3 months. I'll tell you this, that the water utility pays to pump the septics of all the residences that let us do it in the watershed area every 3 years to make sure that those are complying with that federal guideline. Now, so my problem with the Department of Environment is they jump all over us over something like that, but they don't go out and enforce this guideline of the feds when it comes to the individual citizens out in the county who are consuming water that is oftentimes polluted. So here we are. It's a mess, costs us some money, it's been cleaned up.
And I agree with you, up to this point. The people are wrong, and I probably make that mistake. I think everybody does, that throw something in the garbage that they probably shouldn't. But when it reaches that facility, and that is turned into compost and everything else, if the people running the facility or running this town don't realize the difference between Class A compost and raw garbage, then there's something wrong. It should have never left the facility. And the plan of action and getting their permit and everything, there should have been more thought, there should have been planning in it. When the first truck left, and the truck drivers will tell you, man, we're hauling this over to Lake George, and nothing is done, and you haul for a week. Who's at fault? It's the people that put it in there, but who's managing it? Who's managing it? Who's saying it can go or it can't go and where it can be put? And definitely not on a watershed, on the town's water supply.
I'll just finish by saying this. It's too bad that in situations like this, there aren't better ways right at the outset to communicate amongst the Department of Environment, towns, citizens, and all the rest. It just doesn't happen, and I understand it's difficult, but it should happen. It should happen. We've had other issues out at the lake, and much of this could have been avoided had we had the foresight. See, foresight, none of us have it. We make mistakes every day, don't we?
The thing is,
But
Councillor
this could have been avoided, in my respect.
I think it could have too. And when I brought it up to the town's attention, all they had to do was get it out of there. They stalled it. Then all this other stuff just snowballs from there. And you can't get an answer, and we don't know what actually this is going to cost the taxpayer Yarmouth. We don't know. We know how it happened. We don't see anything in place for it happen again. You know, you talk about the compost facility and you go out there, nothing is finished. And the Department of Environment said that stuff's supposed to be tarped over. It's not tarped over. You got a $25,000 or $30,000 compost bag and machine that the town bought that's never been used. It's just out there rusting on the outside of the building there, sitting underneath. And the thousands and thousands of dollars that goes out to the taxpayer Yarmouth just keeps adding up. But I look bad, and I shouldn't come here and talk to the council or raise these points. You're telling me, you think I'm out of line? I don't see it that way.
So you're going to send in the rest of your questions?
Do you
Okay.
understand the questions that I put to you when I was in your office, Jeff? All, you know?
So my understanding of the questions that were asked, if you wanted to know what the entire cost was, the total cost of all
Yes,
the
sir.
activity related
Yes,
to
sir.
the compost that was taken to Lake George, the removal of the compost from Lake George, the the consulting cost for Englobe, the entire works. And I believe that's what we're looking at.
That I'm saying to you.
And so you had a concern about why there are numbers that appear the same on different lines within that report. So Linda has sent me a copy of that, so I can look at what you were referring to. So that the leftmost column, those are the account numbers.
Yes, sir.
Okay? The last two rows start with 00.
Starting with 00.
The bottom two rows, the account numbers start with 00.
Yeah?
Okay, so those are water utility accounts. I'm looking at Jerry to confirm this. These are water utility accounts. The four above that are Town of Yarmouth accounts. And so what happened in the site trucking in F16, fiscal year 16, is the site trucking cost was split evenly between the Town of Yarmouth and the water utility. And the site testing was charged to the town, site consulting was charged to the town, so on. So the site consulting, the 21,334, that was also an equivalent amount charged to the water utility. So the bill was split in half between the Town of Yarmouth and the water utility. That's why those numbers appear exactly the same and why they appear on different lines.
So what are you saying? You're taking some of this money out that it costs to the lake and you just put it in another column somewhere in the town?
No, so we have, the Town of Yarmouth is a separate corporate entity than the water utility. And so to go back in sort of how this happened, right? This was an attempt to follow a recommendation on reforestation. So we had a forester come down from Halifax Water, and he visited many of our properties, including this one. And he suggested that you were never going to have good forestation of that area that was reclaimed from the old mill site until the soil itself was improved. And so what he recommended was improve the soil, and we have compost, which improves soil. So that was the genesis of the activity in the first place. So this was a water utility activity related to the reforestation of that property. So part of the cost was charged to the water utility, those two bottom rows, because that's where the activity began. But most of the charges have remained with the Town of Yarmouth, because the Town of Yarmouth undertook most of the activity related to the testing and so on after the fact.
Well, I don't know how I guess I don't understand how you separate the figures, because all this should come down to the Town of Yarmouth. This is the Town of Yarmouth's mistake. It's not the water utilities' mistake.
With respect, that's not true. That's not true. So the activity was a water utility activity, okay? And at the time, and currently, the town engineer also serves as our top person within the water utility. So the town engineer, right, directed this activity out of the forestry plan. So it was both a water utility activity and a town activity. But the town took on the lion's share of it after the fact. On the testing and all that became a Town of Yarmouth expense.
Well, there we go. To get back to whatever the figure is, which I'd like to see. We get back and you're telling me that the town engineer is responsible and whatever. How did it happen?
So I think Councillor Hood explained how it happened, and it was every 4 or 5 years you have to get your operating permit renewed for something like a compost facility. In the last iteration of permit renewal prior to this event, they changed our permit, so it was no longer a case that Class B compost was 2% by weight of foreign items, metals, plastics, and so on. It was 2%, no more than 2%, but also had to be in compliance with the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment guidelines. So that includes the sieve size. So you might recall when we met out in Lake George at the fire hall one night shortly after all this happened, and we had our first round of testing. Paul Arnold we contracted Paul Arnold to analyze our compost, right? Tell us what it is. And he took samples, and he said, in actual fact, the Class B compost was Class B compost if you used 2% by weight. But what we didn't realize is that we had a higher level of requirement under the latest operating permit, which was the sieve sized, and by that it failed. It did not meet the Class B compost under that new condition. So that was the mistake. Now, do we take responsibility for the mistake? Of course, right? It's our operating permit. We're supposed to know that. But there's a check and a balance in this system. We submit annual reports to the Department of Environment on all of our activity at the compost facility, okay? How much stuff we've received, how much we've put out, all of our testing results, they get it in an annual report. If in that annual report they had noticed that we had not submitted a single sieve test result, they could have realized that we weren't in full compliance with the operating permit. We didn't know this till after the event. They hadn't noticed it until after the event.
Is there not wells on the facility, on the compost facility that they're supposed to test on a regular basis to let know what's draining in?
Groundwater?
The groundwater, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but they hadn't tested those in a year or more.
We're in compliance.
You weren't in compliance then because...
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, no. No, there was no testing going on. And that came right from the town engineer.
Well, I can't speak to that. My understanding is that we were in compliance and are in compliance.
So we go back in the records, we can find all this stuff too, which I know I'm right on this. Well, I'm still waiting for the answer, what the total bill's going to be. We know that we've admitted that the town has made the mistake and everything else. You haven't told me what has been down. And from one council to another, 4 years when we change, you fellas change out, whether you want to run again or whether you don't or whatever, nobody on this, including the councilor that's the head of the watershed, can tell me what the actual bill is today. And nobody knew about it, and I've asked all of you want to be truthful, no answer. I mean, how does that go, and how do you get
Your Worship, the answer is $259,965.
And how do you, excuse me?
The answer is $259,965.
And you're on the mic as saying, we can find it, $125,000 back then. 3 councilors knew that the bill was over $325 way back in the day and said it was over $325 to me. 3 different councilors. So I don't know how you get up with this and you get up with that, and it's $259 because it's not over.
So we're gonna...
If it did go to court and we won or we lost, what's the insurance company's cut on this? What's the projected? This is not the right price. I guarantee you. I know it's not the right price.
So Garnet, you need to put the questions down, all your questions down, send them, you get your answers.
I'll put them down again, but it'll be the same answer. I'm still not going to get this. I'm not going to get the answer. I never have. You know, in all fairness, Your Worship, and I know it was your first time walking in this mirror and everything, and you walked over there and the council was going to go back and they admitted they were wrong and everything. Ever since then, there's been no fairness, there's been no openness about it, or whatever. When you ask for the questions, you ask for the thing, it should all add up. Now, you give that to anybody
Okay.
and ask them. So I'll wait for your answer, Jeff. How long will this take? On your busy schedule. I know you're busy, so pick the time.
Send them in. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy, it's good to see you.
Garnet, you did ask me a question about how much was charged to the water utility. Being a lawyer, I don't know the exact number. I can get you the number, probably within days, the exact number, but I know it's the proper.
In all fairness to you, how did they get to put womanized lumber on a watershed? And I think you were chairman of the water committee then, we're going back a few years. How did this, how does it go? Like, I know people put their hearts and soul into jobs in the United States and things get passed over
think, Clifford, you fought against the, he fought against this. Gary,
Okay.
he fought against it's the municipality that gave those guys a permit to put an industrial use inside a watershed. He fought against that.
It's all in a watershed, just like Council Landry, when he said that's far away from.
Okay,
But the municipality did that.
Anything that can reach that watershed, you gotta be responsible.
That's a question you could ask Leland and the
put your light on, put your light on and say that.
I did ask them, they don't tell you nothing. I'm not from the municipality, they will answer the question.
Why don't you take them on and look at deeper?
Don't they need to?
Or make them pollution?
I don't live in the town, but I think we all know what happened.
Okay, good.
I think we all know what happened there.
All right,
Anyway,
get her back to,
we're waiting to hear.
well, you gotta, yeah, we need the questions. Okay. Motion regarding the deputy mayor. So every 2 years, we do the deputy mayor piece. So we're looking, go ahead there, Councillor McLeod.
Your worship, fellow councillors, I'm prepared to renominate my friend, Councillor Deputy Mayor Phil, for the deputy mayor position for the next 2 years.
You accept that? Okay,
I think
so,
the only comment I'd like to make is that I know that there may be somebody else around the table who may be offering or reoffering the next time that this is an opportunity for that person or persons to get the feel of being deputy mayor. But I know that all of us have responded to her worship's calls when she needs someone to take her place on different moments. So again, I'm quite comfortable in my current position for the next 2 or 3 elections.
So it's my job to ask 3 times if there are any further nominations, so I'll ask that. Anybody feel free to nominate. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? And the 3rd time, any further nominations?
So keep the plaque.
Keep the plaque, okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. So I'm going to say this, because Jim was my deputy before, and it was great. First term, I'm going to say this, I'm going to embarrass Bill, whatever. He's used to it. There are more things in the run of the day that you have to go to and respond to, I think, than people even realize. And I'm just going to say thank you, because you pick up everything that I can't make. I think we share, actually the whole council does. Like, it's just been really good. Plus, he calls me twice a day to ask, you know, how he does it. I text him, and I know a phone call is going to come 30 seconds later. So I just want to say a big thank you, because you've been tremendously helpful. And I know I often ask the rest of council if there's something that's close to your heart that I think you represent, you know, the town, and we kind of share it.
I don't have kids, but I think deputy mayor's almost like having grandkids. You can do it for a while, then you can pass it back.
Right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's working though. We're a good council. Okay, so road tax for discussion. Okay, just briefly to put it on our radar, and I'm going to let Jeff speak to it because we had a bit of a conversation. I was at the Atlantic Mayors in St. John's last week, and Mayor Mills from Truro, we were discussing roads, and he said they implemented a road tax. And basically, I think what it does is does the surface of the roads. He's not doing, so for example, I mean, we cost share with the federal government on the Cliff Street project, which gets the roads paved, and it also gets all the infrastructure taken care of. So I don't think that's where they were going. They were just doing a tax for folks in the town that went into a pot. And I just thought I'd mention it, but we also fund our depreciation to the point where we're okay. So I thought I'd go ahead.
Your Worship, I'm actually, it's just this year, I'm becoming quite comfortable with our public works and the work of the engineer and our operations. And resurfacing, I don't know how many kilometers, not a kilometer, but resurfacing 3 or 4 locations, and that's making a wonderful difference. If we could continue on doing that, I wouldn't like to see a dedicated tax. I depend upon the staff to direct us, and we generally support, make our own suggestions or comments.
Yeah, so the road tax, or whatever they're calling it in Truro, I think is it's a really good communication to their taxpayers that they are taxing for and putting money into in street resurfacing. Your Worship, we spoke earlier about this. I reminded you, and I know I didn't need to, but that we fund our depreciation of our tangible capital assets. And what that means is that all of our assets, that the pipes, the sidewalks, the streets, the buildings, the vehicles, we expense a fair share of the depreciation every year, and we put that into the capital fund, and we reinvest that every year. So while Truro is focused on the surface of the streets and improving that for their citizens, and doing so through a special tax, we're taking what I think is a broader view and looking at all of our equipment and buildings and so on, and charging an appropriate amount, putting it into a fund and reinvesting it. And we're going to get, and we've been in the process of getting more sophisticated in terms of how our engineering and public works staff bring forward those capital recommendations through a sophisticated asset management plan that Charles will help present in the coming months. But you know, it's a great communications thing that Truro has done. They are not funding their depreciation, though, from general taxation or in any form in their operating budget. So I think we're doing a broader and an appropriate job on funding capital. We might not be communicating as clearly as Truro is, and it's interesting. It's always interesting when a council introduces a new tax and it's well received in a community. You think, okay, they've done something right, and what they think they've done right is the communication around it.
Thank you.
And I think if you go back in history, I think the council that Councillor Hood sat on did that very well with the tax for the Mariner Center, or was it a levy tax, whatever it was. That was a significant amount of money that they charged the citizens, and they could see a benefit that was, you could see it from the road, you could use it, you could go in it, you could watch an event. But then you have another situation like Councillor McLeod and our engineer talked about earlier, is a leak on Alma Street. So you think of all the stuff, how, man, that pavement's nice, it's nice and smooth, but you also got to consider, and you said it, Jeff, about the condition of the pipes and the sewer pipes underground too. So I think I'm comfortable. I've had some really good comments about the work on Stairs Road, the work on Main Street, the work on Albert Street, except for maybe that little one that you're talking about on Prince Lane. But I've had some really good comments about that. So yeah, Hibernia's. We've got a lot of paving done. Yeah, we still need some significant amount of work, but it was interesting. I watched that council meeting in Truro about that, and then about the deer hunt. They actually talked longer about an hour longer about the deer hunt in Truro, about the deer population in Truro, than they did about the putting the road tax in. They talked about an hour longer.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Charles?
I just wanted to comment on the asset management strategy really quickly. You know, the surface of the road could be somewhat more of a simple variable, if you will. Anyone could walk the street and use a systematic approach and do kind of a condition assessment of the road, but then when you're talking about the subsurface conditions of the pipes, the performance of those pipes, possible future demands, then you're talking about something that's quite complicated and difficult for the average person to weigh and balance, and even a technical person. But the goal of the asset management strategy is to simplify that and produce something that anyone can interpret, at least on a preliminary basis. So we'll have a colorized map, and it will be graduated, maybe green, yellow, red, and that will be able to be somewhat interpreted by the public or laymen, and it will just help people understand what the priorities are when it comes to the complex interaction of the pipes under the ground, the surface of the road, the performance of those different pieces of infrastructure.
Thank you. Good stuff. Okay, so we can leave the road tax one unless there's, sorry Wade, daytime, I couldn't see it.
No worries. I just wanted to say, of all the things that citizens bring up when they come to me and say they have something to say, usually roads are one of the biggest ones, and probably the most often one. I've gotten a lot of comments about the work that's been done, especially on intersections. The intersections that were done, that was some terrific work. It really was. And I've been saying for a while that we need almost a goal. How do I put this that it makes sense? In the same way that a tax created the publicity and also created money for building the Mariners Center. When you talk about major projects, repaving the town is another one of those major projects, and one that we need to really get behind. So I support the tax as far as it goes, certainly. And also, as our engineer mentioned, and as I've been seeing for a while now, we need almost to, as a community, come together and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I remember during your campaign this time through, Your Worship, you were talking about the 70 or 80 kilometers of roads that we have. And what I'd like to see is regular updates, perhaps with the press, with social media, that kind of thing, saying, okay, we have 70 kilometers, this many have been paved. Ultimately, we're aiming for all of it to be done once it's finished. And I know there are other complicated issues there when it comes to, the piping underneath and that. Those become much more major projects. But I think that this is one of those projects that, in all honesty, it's not really sexy. It's kind of the same thing as when you have a house and instead of painting your living room, you're doing your roof. But the roof needs to be done. And in the same way that the town, I think, would get behind a let's pave the whole damn town kind of a promotion or goal. And I think it's something that I think the entire citizenry would get behind.
So I love the idea of the update. I think if, and I can just speak for myself, but just to know this is the plan, and because, I mean, our engineer knows better than any of us what has to be done, how much can be done, all those pieces. So that, and I think I got that probably a month ago, just a list. I had, maybe you asked for me or Linda asked for me, but what's the list of what's been done in the past few years, what's upcoming, and if we have that in front of us, we can all, it's the same message that we can use. So maybe that's a really good way to start. The other piece is, NSFM now has a roads committee. They were asking folks to sit on it, but it's that whole discussion about us, right? We pay for 100% of our roads. We're a service center, which means that our population doubles or triples every weekday. So the road usage by the folks that don't live here is double or triple, which is fine, because that's what we do. We provide, we are the service center. So I'm just wondering, what's going to come out of that, because the towns are really saying this is, because we pay 100% for hours, which is okay, but we also, through our taxes, pay for you know, municipal roads as well. So something's got to give there. I'm not sure what it is, but they're having those discussions. So hopefully something comes from that. But that update's a really good start. So we're all speaking from the same page. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I think that was the number one thing on the town's task force was the discrepancy in the roads, what we pay for and what the municipalities pay for, right? And I think there was a point that within the last year we had a meeting with people from Transportation Infrastructure Renewal with their other two municipal partners. So here we are paying 100% for our roads, and those guys arguing between the two municipalities what should be paved and what should be fixed and what should be done in another municipality. And I think if you would have let those guys sit in the room, the two other municipal units, with the budget that Infrastructure Renewal has or highways, I bet you wouldn't come to a decision on what to do with the money. So I think we've piggybacked really well on the Brown Street project, Hawthorne. We've done really well on the Cliff Street project. We've piggybacked our money really well to do some road stuff. And I think we're on the right path. And just...
Yeah, and the whole piggybacking thing, which is important, it's that leveraging the funding, right? Because we could never, it's all right to surface a road, but we all know.
I think the largest piece of road that we paved in the last 10 or 15 years was the Pleasant Street project. And the piping underneath for water and sewer is probably more important than what we put on top, but and the active transportation trail. But the biggest compliments we got is I can't believe how nice the road is, but the most important part was underneath.
Right? Absolutely. The unglamorous.
And Jeff,
piece.
That's on the Town of Yarmouth website, right? Charles's report? Yes, it is. Okay, good. And that'd be interesting for the people to look at too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very good information.
Yeah. So we're good?
Your worship, we can also produce a short list there, just that's a little bit easier to train the eyes to as well.
Yeah, the whatever Linda sent me on the roads was just concise, easy. This is what's getting paved, this is where we are. Go ahead, Wade.
Well, if I may, I'd like to see, again, if you're going to create kind of a unifying project that everybody can work towards, let's do some visuals as much as we possibly can. Things that translate easily into social media platforms, that kind of thing. And we can just push. And there's also the fact that, you know, when we plan ahead, now granted, things often happen, you know, that you can't necessarily do what you plan. But the other questions I get all the time, like for example, I live on Albert Street. So, you know, that the top end of Albert Street is in bad shape. The bottom of it was, but it was fixed. But I have to be honest, even as a councillor, I had no idea they were fixing it until they showed up and fixed it. So almost when we're putting together a plan for the next year, it would be nice to say, you know, barring major disaster, you people on, I don't know, whatever street it may be, Elm Street or whatever, you're going to get some work done this year.
Yeah.
Just so people are aware.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's an awareness thing because it's not, that's not where you're going at all. It's not up to us to decide. It's up to.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Right?
That's not where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going to just make sure people know.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Wade. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I'm hearing Councillor Cleveland say, Your Worship, is that he wants asset management, and I'm excited to hear him say it in his words, because I think what he's asking for is exactly the kind of thing we're going to be delivering, and we've been working towards that, creeping towards it slowly. Now the project is starting to gain some momentum. We'll get to a milestone in the near future, and we'll have a fairly lengthy presentation for you to show you where we are. Along with that, as we're becoming a little more sophisticated in our choices of where to invest those dollars, you know, there were some changes made this year in the plan, and I apologize to all of council for not communicating those changes. But Charles and I actually just as recently as yesterday spoke about, you know, go forward on these projects on streets, that what we ought to be doing is calling a meeting of all the citizens on the street and briefing them on the project, getting their feedback on any concerns that they have, as we roll it out. Start the communication, early on and create those relationships around the project, because there's no doubt, as we know right now on Parade Street, that these projects that impact street infrastructure are inconvenient for the short term, and so we have to be aware and understanding of people's concerns, and they have to be, to some degree, understanding of the need for disruption to make improvements. So, yeah, so we'll be doing a better job with the communication, both to council and to the public, and we'll be more sophisticated in our investments, and you'll be able to see and show constituents the bigger picture and why we're sort of focused on specific areas and not others.
Good? Okay, so I just put Lebanese Heritage Month for information, but I might have mentioned it already. The province is designating November as Lebanese Heritage Month. They've already done some activities, including the installation of a statue in the city. So I'll just keep you posted, but we're going to do something relatively big here, but small enough to get us started. Maybe a dinner where everybody can come and enjoy Lebanese food or whatever it is. Yeah. I'll cook. We'll do that in December anyway. I'll have another.
We'll have to start in December.
We'll have to start in December. So anyway, I just want to keep you updated on that. And then, okay, so the deer hunt in Truro, and it's just for information, but again, Phil, you watched that.
I saw it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I watched it for an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
I was in Truro for another meeting, and I watched it for an hour and a half. But the thing about Truro compared to the town of Yarmouth is they have, I think, 2 or 3 fairly large areas. They have a reservoir area that they can go in and do a bow hunt. They also have Victoria Park, which they can go in and do a call or a hunt. They have 2 or 3 large areas that they can do that in. So I think they're going to go in with some bows and do some hunting in there and try to clean out the herd a little bit. But Truro does have some geographical differences than the town of Yarmouth, because I don't think I'd want anybody up on Prospect or Huntington with a bow, and I don't think I'd want anybody on Havelock Drive or Ellis Road with a bow going after deer.
Yeah.
And they've talked about it, and we've talked about it at Town Caucus. That was brought up last time about the deer population.
So, Linda, you're putting together a meeting? And is it natural resources? With natural resources regarding this issue. Yeah, something's got to give. Okay. Yep, good, okay. All right, Haley Road sidewalk. Councillor Barry, Deputy Mayor.
I'll start it off, Your Worship. I had a conversation with Councillor Barry over the last week or two, also with yourself, also with the CAO, and also with a couple of citizens from that area. I know that we did a preliminary costing of a sidewalk in that area, Jeff, and I asked about funding opportunities and some other things, and we had a pretty good discussion for a half hour yesterday about it. What direction we need for staff to get out that report and to maybe go a step farther. Make a motion, staff look into the previous sidewalk, because there's a whole, over the last couple of years, several years, Andrew Cameron has done a really nice job out there in that corner. We also know that the school is there. The pizza place is quite popular now. They use the Haley Road as a flow-through area, so I just wondered what the next step is to look at what we already have in place and to go from there.
Why don't we ask for a brief staff report on the issue or the idea of pedestrian sidewalk on Haley Road, and let us put together those preliminary financial numbers, how they might fit, how we might approach the project, and some of the challenges that the project might pose, and we can have a good discussion at a future committee of the whole.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I'll make that a motion. And you also,
Linda, you got that?
Charles, you know what I'm thinking, right? And I think Councilor Berry probably want to have something to say because I know he talked to a couple of the same people that I talked to.
Mine was basically citizens that came right to the school, and their concern was safety of them. They're older, they're living in that development that's right across from the pizza place, and just getting from point A to point B, because most of them are walking instead of driving, and they're finding it very difficult to find somewhere that's safe. The concern is mainly it's only going to take one accident where they stumble close to the road, and all of a sudden now we have a tragedy. So they're basically wondering how long it's going to take, wonder a quick time frame or something we can say back to them, or some blurb that can get out there to at least that particular area. They see other areas in town with some sidewalk development, and they're wondering, because they're on the outskirts, it seems that they live on the outer skirts, that not in the main core, that they would like some kind of solution.
Yep, good. And I had one of the folks came into the office as well, so.
And you had a real interesting idea too, Jeff, on one of them, right?
You good? Okay. Motion, was it seconded? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Correspondence, request for presentation, Yarmouth Facade Society.
Make a motion, Your Worship, that we get a presentation from the Yarmouth Facade Society on the next available council date. I'll second that.
Okay, so Natalie, I'm just going to ask you this, or I should ask Linda, can we get them on at the next one? Because is it going to affect budget, what we put in the budget? Yes. Okay, so as soon as we can. All right. Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay. Additions, Mariners, Councillor Hood.
Excuse me. We were provided with some financials for the operations at the Mariner Center some months ago. There was a compilation done, I think, by our accountants. And so we've had it for some time, and I thought it would be appropriate to, we don't get this for nothing. I mean, when we make these requests for this kind of information, I assume we make them for a reason. And so I've looked it over, and I'm going to highlight a few concerns that I have. The revenues between 2009 and 2018, 2009, $837,700, 2018, $831,338. And if you look through the intervening years, it's fair to say, my comment would be that the revenues at Mariner Centers have flatlined for 10 years. When you look at the expenses, for instance, sometimes we'll be told that, well, the cost of fuel's gone up and so on. I've heard that one. In 2009, the cost of fuel was $117,000, and last year the cost of fuel was $112,000. It's varied up and down over those times. Salaries and employee benefits. In 2009, there were $333,000, and last year there were $439,000. Total expenditures in 2009 were $846,000, and last year there were $1,081,000. The municipal contribution from the town of Yarmouth, municipality of the district of Yarmouth, co-owners with us, and from Argyle, in 2009, $8,316, and last year $250,000. I have concerns about these numbers, Your Worship. I have concerns about what plans, if any, management has at Mariner Center to address these concerns, particularly when they've made as an aggressive a pitch to the town for an expansion. It would seem to me reasonable that the town as an owner might ask that there be a plan in place to show how much and how the current financial situation can be addressed. These numbers don't add up from a business point of view, and I realize Mariner Center isn't entirely a business, but I know this, that when we built it, we were promised, and we did deliver, for a number of years, a Mariner Center that did not run a deficit. And it seems to me reasonable that we would expect that it be run without, the target should be to run without a deficit, even to this day. And so I think that it would be appropriate for council to consider requesting management to come in and address these concerns to council. That's all I have to say. Somebody the rest of, we've all had this material, and I leave it to council to decide whether it wishes to do anything about it.
Go ahead, Deputy.
I agree with Councillor Hood. Do you think, since we have another funding partner, that if we're going to have this conversation, that we have it together?
I think so.
I think so. And we are also.
Where would Argyle be in that situation? Because they're also,
They pay the fund
they
operations.
fund operations, right?
Yeah.
I think it is a matter that all of us should be concerned about, and I think, though, before we go off and sort of offer our own individual solutions or ideas and that, we should withdraw. There's an opportunity for something for explanations, and I think that's the first step in addressing this.
Okay, whose light's on? Were you on? You're good? I'm just wondering what the next steps are. Do we, because we're sort of doing next steps. We're discussing that with the CAOs and the wardens to get the mandate out. We sent the letter, that piece, right? Because we have to figure out, we've never said from owners, here's a very clear mandate. This is the expectation, which is something we really need to do. Right? Collectively, yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. We have to do it together. 'Cause we're all,
Your Worship, I am aware that something like that's being done. It's just that I've had this around for quite a time, and I thought it was appropriate to put it in the public record because with all the enthusiasm that was evident 6 or 8, 9 months ago about the expansion out there, I think we can't let it go in the public arena. We can't let these things pass by without the facts being out there. And I've brought this forward to do so today, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
okay, thank you. All right, so where are we? Additions, we're done. Anything in camera? No? Looks like we're done.
Motion to adjourn, Your Worship.
Motion to adjourn. So moved. All in favor? Okay, good.